Alright, welcome back everybody. We are still reading Chocolate Fever, where our main character, Henry, lives with his family in New York. He's a brother, sister, mom, and dad, and he loves eating chocolate. Lots and lots of chocolate. He eats it breakfast, lunch, dinner, blah, blah, blah. And his parents let him because they say it doesn't affect him in any way, so it's fine. Probably not the best parenting style, but he goes to school, and on the way to school he figures out that he doesn't really feel good. He feels strange. He talks to a few people, and then during math class, little brown spots start popping up all over his arms and hands. So he tells the teacher, and she looks at him and doesn't know what they are. She had a few guesses, but that's not what they were. She had another teacher look at him, had a few guesses, didn't know what they were. Had the school nurse look at him. By that time they had popped up all over his face too. She didn't know what they were. The whole time through all this, everybody keeps smelling chocolate around him. Don't know why. Then while in the nurse's office, the nurse, the teacher, and Henry start hearing popping sounds. And then they notice that the little brown spots were popping into little brown lumps. So they were getting bigger and bigger. Kind of freaked everybody out. So the nurse took him to the hospital. The teacher called his parents. While at the hospital, Dr. Fargo did a lab sample of Henry's spots and sent it to the lab. And while they were poking and prodding him, the lab called back and said it was chocolate. So the brown spots were chocolate. And he was all excited because he found a new disease called chocolate fever and, going to go down in history and be famous. Henry, on the other hand, was not really keen to all this. So he decided to run away, and he ran away from the nurses and the doctors. He got away after running for a long time and went and hid in a garage. And then he made his decision of what he's going to do because he can't go home because his parents will take him to the hospital, and he doesn't want to go back to the hospital. He wants to go somewhere until this all passes. So we will find out where he goes and what he does. Alright, Chapter 7. In the schoolyard. It was almost 2 hours later now, and the sun was somewhat lower in the sky. Henry looked cautiously out of the garage, saw no one, and started on his way. He walked for a long time, trying to stay on the side streets and being careful to avoid attention. It was not easy. People kept staring at him. Henry ignored them and kept on walking. In the middle of the street down which he was walking stood a school. Henry could see lots of boys playing in the schoolyard. He decided to walk through the yard to get to the next street. As he started through, all the boys stopped playing basketball and pitching in and roller skate hockey to look at him. It was as if all the noise and action had become frozen, like a movie or TV show that stopped suddenly. Henry kept going. As he was about halfway through, just about in the middle of the yard, the kids seemed to come to life again. In less time than it takes to tell about it, he was surrounded. Henry looked around him. All the boys stared back. They had formed a tight circle around him. Henry didn't like it. One of the tallest boys, who looked a good deal older than Henry, spoke up. "Boy, are you ugly," he said. "Yeah," said another boy in the crowd. "Really ugly." "Ugly," echoed another boy. I'd better be polite, Henry thought. "Excuse me," he said in a quiet voice. "Could I get through, please?" The boys didn't move. The big boy, who seemed to be the leader, spoke again. "I've seen pimples before, but those are ridiculous." "They're not pimples," said another boy. "They're warts." "Yeah, warts," said another. "They gotta be warts." Now all the boys were speaking up. "Ugliest warts in the whole world." "In the world? Man, they are the ugliest warts in the universe. I thought I've seen ugly kids before, but this one is out of sight. Horrible. Disgusting. Revolting. And he smells too," a fat boy with glasses said. "Yuck, like a stupid candy factory." "Nauseating." The more the boys called him names, the worse Henry felt. He opened his mouth to say something, but nothing came out. The big boy in the crowd held up his hand to silence the others. "Quiet down, you guys," he said. "I want to talk to Mr. Ugly here." In a few moments, the crowd was silent. "Now then," the big one said. "You, Mr. Ugly, what's your name, kid?" Before Henry answered, he thought carefully. He was ashamed of himself and the way he looked, but he was even more ashamed of the gang around him. How dared they act so mean? He hadn't harmed them, and now, when he could certainly use a friend, they had clearly marked him as an enemy. Henry got angry, but he kept his anger firmly under control. My name is my name is my own business, he said. It's no concern of yours. The gang hooted and shouted at Henry's reply. A few even whistled. Don't be fresh, kid, the big boy said. We don't like fresh kids here. A few of the larger boys edged closer to Henry, closing their ring around him tighter. Let me hit him, Frankie, a voice said. Let me get him, another boy said. Henry thought quickly. Touch me and you die, he said. I have a rare and mysterious disease. Whoever touches me will catch it and die a horrible death. The gang stopped closing in on Henry. Oh, yeah, said the big boy. You expect us to believe that? I don't care whether you believe it or not, Henry said. You're bluffing. Bluffing, Henry said. Touch me and you'll find out I'm bluffing. I have chocolate fever, one of the most horrible and catching diseases in the world. Chocolate fever, echoed the big boy. You're making it up. Henry could see that he had the crowd on the run. Chocolate fever is the worst disease ever discovered on Earth, he said. You know what happens if you get chocolate fever? Your whole head swells up. Your mouth gets dry. You break out in big chocolate spots like me. You begin to look ugly, and then the really bad stuff begins. There is Henry and all the boys listening to him talk about chocolate fever. The boys were listening closely now, and the circle around him was beginning to widen as the gang started to back away. He's making it up, fellas, big boy said. Don't listen to him, but the boys were listening all right and believing every word. Henry began to walk around the boys. As he did, they made way for him. Slowly, a path opened, giving him room to get by. I don't want you to die, Henry said as he passed through the ring of boys, so you just better let me be on my way. None of the boys tried to stop him. Even Big Boy, as Henry had passed close by, made no move to touch him. Just as Henry neared the outer ring of boys, he heard one of them exclaim, Hey, I know who he is. Heard it on the radio when I came home from school. There's a kid who ran away from the hospital this morning, and the police are looking for him. His name is Henry Green. Big Boy called out as Henry kept walking. Is that you, kid? Are you Henry Green? Henry Green? Henry called back over his shoulder. Never heard of him. Just the same, as soon as he was clear of the schoolyard, Henry broke into a run and didn't stop until he had left the gang far, far behind him. Alright, so wherever Henry's going, he came across the schoolyard and decided to walk across it. What happened? Yeah, all the boys that were playing on the schoolyard decided they were going to confront Henry. Made a big, really tight circle around him and started calling him ugly and a bunch of other names. Kind of bullies. It made Henry mad, and they asked his name. Did he tell them his name? Nope, he said that he would not give their name. It's none of their business. It was his own business. Then they kind of got even madder at him. So what did he tell them after that? He told him that he had chocolate fever, the most deadly disease known, and contagious, really, really contagious. One kid thought he was making it up, but none of them wanted to take a chance to find out. At the very end of the chapter, one of the kids says that they know who he is. Did they? Yeah, they heard on the radio Henry Green, which is his name, had escaped the hospital, and they were on the lookout for him. When they asked him if he was Henry Green, he said no. And then took off running again. Alright, Chapter 8, Mech. The truck thumped and rumbled along the superhighway, its powerful headlights cutting a yellow slice through the blackness. Are you all right? Are you all right up there, kid? The driver called. From the sleeping bunk set up high in the cab of the diesel, Henry answered, Right, Mac, I'm okay. Okay, Henry thought bitterly. Sure, I'm okay. I don't have a friend in the world. I look like some sort of sideshow freak. The police and doctors and my folks and heaven knows who else is after me, and I don't know where I'm going. If that's being okay, then I'm okay. He had stood out on the highway for a long time, watched the day turn into dark. Hundreds of cars and trucks had swept by without stopping, but Mac had stopped and offered him a lift. That was hours ago, and they had come a long way. Henry didn't know how many miles they had traveled or where they were heading, and what's more, he didn't care. He was sure that Mac had not seen the spots. It had probably been too dark to notice them. No one in his right mind would have anything to do with me, Henry thought. Not once they got to look at all these stupid brown spots. Even Mac, nice as he seemed, wouldn't have taken a chance if he had seen me clearly. Hop in, Mac had said. The weather's fine. Big grin crossing his friendly face. He was a huge black man dressed in dirty coveralls. His truck was clean and warm, and Henry didn't hesitate. After sitting alongside Mac for an hour or so in the front seat, Henry had climbed up into the bunk and fallen asleep. He didn't know how long he had slept, but he felt rested now. Mac turned the big truck off the highway and onto a service road. Slowly, he shifted down through the gears and, braking gently, brought the huge trailer to a stop. "Hey, kid," he called. "Come on down here." Henry climbed down to sit beside Mac. "Supper time," Mac said. "Now, just as soon as get the lights on." "I like the dark," Henry said quickly. "You what?" "I like the dark," Henry said as the lights came on. Henry blinked at the sudden brightness. He's seen me now, he thought. Mac reached down below his seat and brought out a huge picnic basket. He placed it between them on the seat. "Now, let's just see what the woman gave us for supper," he said. "It's all right," Henry said. "I'll get off here." "Huh?" "I won't make any fuss," Henry said. "I'll just go quietly." There him and Mac are getting ready to eat, and Henry's all worried. "You're a strange one, kid," Mac said. "Now, what are you talking about?" "Well, you must see these big brown spots all over my body by now." Mac nodded. "Yeah, I see them." He began looking through the picnic basket. "You like ham and cheese?" "I'm willing to go," Henry began. "Maybe chicken spread. We got chicken spread, too. And I do believe, yes, by heavens, tuna fish." "I mean," Henry began again, "if you don't want to have anything to do with me, I'll understand. I really will." "What'll it be?" Mac said. "Tuna, chicken, spread, or ham and cheese?" He was looking squarely into Henry's face, smiling ever so slightly. "Tuna," said Henry, after a moment, taking the sandwich Mac handed him. "Glory be, we eat at last," Mac said. Henry gobbled the tuna sandwich and nothing flat, then went on to dispose of a ham and cheese, an apple, a piece of raisin cake, and half a thermos bottle of milk. There was a chocolate cake too, but Henry declined it. Somehow, it didn't appeal to him. When they had finished eating, Mac settled back and lighted a cigar. "Mac," Henry said, "is there something you want to ask me?" "Sure, but I figure you're about to tell me what I want to know." "Well," Henry began, "I have this disease called chocolate fever. That's what these big brown spots all over me. Chocolate. And nobody, especially a doctor named Fargo, knows what to do about it. So I'll probably have these spots for the rest of my life, and that's why you're running away?" Mac said. "I have to run away," Henry said. "I look so terrible and ugly." "I wouldn't say ugly," Mac said. "Unique, maybe." "What's that?" "Sort of special." "But how can I live this way? I'm a freak, a chocolate freak." "Easy now," Mac said. "Calm down. People will be looking and staring at me. How can I live with people staring at me?" Mac chuckled softly. He looked away from Henry. "How would you like it, Mac, if people stared at you?" "You know, kid, I've had some experiences in that line myself," the big man said quietly. "You mean people stare at you?" "Uh-huh," Mac said. "When you're black and most of the other people are white, that's bound to happen." "Gee, Mac," Henry said, "I'm sorry." "Oh, it's nothing personal, kid. Besides, by the time I was your age, I'd gotten over it. But you know, getting stared at and some other things got me thinking. If there's so many white people and so few black people, why, that kind of makes me unique." "You mean special?" "Exactly, right. So all that staring and stuff, what it did was make me proud. You know, black is beautiful." "That's okay for you," said Henry, "but white with big brown spots all over is ugly." Mac put his hands into his mouth and coughed for a moment. Henry thought he might be laughing. "Okay, youngster," he said, "have it your own way. Just tell me, where are you going? What you figure on doing?" "I'm just running away," Mac said, "and I don't know what I'm going to do." Mac thought about it for about a second and a half. "Just flat out running away, huh? Things get too much for you and you cut?" "Brilliant." "I won't go back," Henry said. "I just won't." "Okay, then you won't go back. But let me ask you something. You got a mother?" "Yes." "Father?" "Yes." "They've been good to you?" "Yes." Don't beat up on you? Of course not. Don't make your life miserable? No. So they're pretty good parents, right? Right. And you love them because they're so kind and good, right? Yes. Well, how do you think they feel right now? Wondering where you could be. Are you all right? Are you dead? Maybe. Yes, sir. You sure are treating them mean. Why, it wouldn't surprise me if your mother was crying her heart out right now, just sick to death with worrying about you. But Mac, now you hush till I'm finished with what I've got to say. Good child respects his parents. Yes, sir. Good child don't cause his parents heartache or grief or worry. No, sir. Henry didn't try to say anything, but he was listening very carefully. Now here's my plan, kid. First thing we do is drive down this road till we get to a telephone. Then we call your folks so they can stop worrying. I'm not going back to that hospital, Henry said firmly. Well, tell that to your folks too. Maybe there's someplace else you can go. Some other doctor who can take care of you. I like that idea, Henry said. Who knows, Matt continued. Maybe this chocolate fever of yours will go away. Maybe you'll just wake up tomorrow and it'll be all cured. I hope so, said Henry, but I don't think so. Anyway, first thing to do is to call your folks, okay? Henry smiled, and there was something about the way Mac spoke that made him feel better. How about it? Mac asked. Should we go find that telephone? What are we waiting for? Henry said. Alrighty. So, Henry gets picked up by a truck driver named Mac. Very nice black gentleman. But he's worried about the light getting turned on because, once again, he has chocolate dark spots all over him. Did Mac freak out about the chocolate spots? No, he did not. He said it made him unique. And when Henry was complaining and stuff, he said people stare at him and he doesn't like that. And Mac would understand because he's never been stared at, which then Mac told him something. What did Mac tell him? Mac told him he got stared at a lot. As a black kid and a black man around a lot of white people, they all stared at him. So he knows what it's like to be stared at. And he just thinks Henry looks unique. Not ugly, not strange, just unique. Sort of special. Did Mac think he was unique and sort of special? Yes, he does. Because there's fewer blacks than whites, so that makes him unique. What did Mac tell Henry he needs to do? He needs to call his parents. Let them know he's okay. Because they're probably at home crying because they're good parents. We know that from the beginning. They let him eat chocolate all the time. They're probably at home worried and crying about where he is. Alright, chapter 9. Hijacked. Mac doused the cab lights and reached for a switch that would start the diesel. But at the very moment, a loud voice from the darkness outside the truck called, "Reach for the sky! Don't make a move! Hands up! We got you covered!" Mac froze at the wheel. Henry's heart leaped up in his throat, ricocheted around, and settled back down in his chest again. Two men jumped up on the truck, one on each side. Each man carried a small blue revolver. The guns were pointed straight at Mac. After a moment, Mac found his voice. "What is this?" he asked. The man on Mac's side of the truck, the one with the mustache, replied, "This, sir, is a robbery, a stick-up, a hijacking, in fact. Section 3, Part 4 of the Criminal Code. Seizure of a cargo of goods from a vehicle or vessel on the road or waterways." "Oh," said Mac. "Right, Louis," said the man on Henry's side of the truck. He was smaller of the two thieves, and instead of a mustache, he wore horn-rimmed glasses and a lopsided smile. "I'm Lefty. He's Louis," the man went on. "People get us mixed up sometimes, but I don't know why." "My name is Henry Green," said Henry, "and he's Mac." "Pleased to make your acquaintance, I'm sure," said Louis, "even under these unfortunate circumstances." Polite as they seemed to be, Louis and Lefty are still pointing their guns at Mac and Henry. "You sure you want to do this?" Mac asked slowly. He seemed to be puzzled by the hijackers. "I think you're going to be in a whole lot of trouble." "Trouble?" said Louis. "You'll be in trouble if you don't do exactly what I say. Now climb up into that bunk up there, both of you, so we can get on with the job." Henry did as he was told, with Mac following slowly behind him. Mac was getting angry. Henry could see, but when he spoke, his voice was calm. I don't suppose it would do much good to tell you that you are definitely breaking the law, he said. Louie laughed. Breaking the law, mister? We are fracturing it. And with that, Lefty jumped into the driver's seat and Louie took his place beside him, and the truck began to roll. Mac still had something in his hand, and above the roar of the motor he called down to the pair of thieves, "You better stop now. I think you're making an awful mistake." "There's no mistake about it," Louie called back over his shoulder. "We know exactly what we're doing. We're hijacking a cargo of expensive furs." Mac looked dumbfounded at this last piece of news. "Furs?" he cried out. "Furs?" With that he started to laugh. Great gust of laughter poured out of Mac. He doubled over 1 or 2 times, and finally tears came to his eyes and rolled down his cheek. "Oh, Lord," he cried. When he finally could speak, "They think they're stealing furs." The more Mac laughed, the more concerned Louie became. He signaled Lefty to stop the truck, and when he had turned to look up at Mac, in a low voice he said, "No furs." Mac, taking care to keep a straight face, simply answered, "No furs." "Then what?" Louie began as Mac interrupted. "Candy bars," Mac shouted, the laughter beginning again. "Ha ha, candy bars." "Oh no," Louie said. "Chocolate bars, ha ha, with almonds." "Nuts!" exclaimed Lefty. "And some without almonds. What are we going to do with a load of chocolate bar, genius?" Lefty demanded of Louie. "Ha! And some with crunch. Ha! And some without crunch. Chocolate bars. I can't believe it," Louie mumbled. "You said this job would be like taking candy from a baby." Lefty said in an angry way. "But chocolate bars? And some with caramel. Ha ha!" As Mac continued his roll call, the various kinds of candy in the truck carried the 2 thieves silently in the front seat, staring at each other. It was plain that they were amazed. After a while, Lefty spoke. "What do we do now?" he asked. "I don't know," Louie replied, "but I think of something. Meanwhile, let's get this truck to the hideout. And some of it with peanut butter. But none of it with furs." Ha ha. With Mac's laughter ringing in their ears, the unhappy thieves looked glumly ahead of the truck and rumbled through the night. Alright, so that's the end of that chapter. What happened when they got ready to leave? They got hijacked by Lefty and Louie. Very polite, but still breaking the law. What did they think? What did Lefty and Louie think they were stealing? They thought they were stealing some expensive furs, but Mac kind of ruined that little surprise for him. What did Mac say they were stealing? A truckload of candy bars. Tons and tons of them. Doesn't seem that great. But they decided to take them back to their hideout anyways. So that's where we're going to stop on this video. We will find out the conclusion of Chocolate Fever in the next one. See you then.